Title page and author's note. The Power of Purpose. What the Bible and Science Reveal About a Longer Life, by Valeriu Petre. Author's note. For most of my life, I heard the same advice about living longer. Eat better, exercise regularly, avoid stress, take care of your health. All of that is good advice. There is no question that our habits affect our health and our lifespan. But over time, I began to notice something that did not fit neatly into that picture. Some of the most resilient people I had ever met did not necessarily follow perfect health routines. Yet they carried a remarkable strength about them. They remained mentally sharp, emotionally steady, and deeply engaged with life even as they grew older. When I looked closer, I noticed something they had in common. They lived with purpose. Their lives were directed toward something beyond comfort or routine. They felt responsible for something meaningful, a mission, a calling, a responsibility toward others or toward God. That observation stayed with me. It eventually led me to explore a question that became the foundation of this book. Could purpose influence not only the meaning of life, but also its length? Modern science has begun exploring this very question. Researchers studying longevity have discovered something fascinating. People who live with a strong sense of meaning often experience greater resilience, better mental health, and in many cases, longer lives. But long before scientists began measuring these patterns, the Bible had already been speaking about the power of purposeful living. This book is an attempt to explore the connection between those two worlds, the ancient wisdom found in Scripture and the growing body of scientific research that is beginning to echo the same idea. My hope is simple, that as you read these pages, you will not only think about how long life can be, but also about why life was given in the first place. Because a life lived with purpose does not only add meaning to the years, sometimes it may also add years to life. 2. Introduction. Introduction. A question that changed everything. Human beings have always been fascinated by the idea of living longer. In every generation, people search for the secret of longevity. Entire industries exist around the promise of extending life. Books, diets, exercise programs, and supplements all claim to hold the key to staying healthy and living longer. The advice is usually familiar. Eat nutritious food, stay physically active, get enough sleep, reduce stress. All of these things matter. Medical research confirms that lifestyle plays an important role in health and longevity. But if you observe life closely, you begin to notice something puzzling. The equation does not always work the way we expect. You have probably seen examples yourself. Someone who took excellent care of their health, who exercised, ate carefully, and followed every recommendation may pass away far earlier than expected. At the same time, another person who never seemed overly concerned about health trends might live well into their 90s. These situations do not mean that healthy habits are unimportant, but they suggest that something else may also influence how long we live. That possibility raises an interesting question. What if longevity involves more than biology? In recent decades, researchers studying aging populations began to notice a pattern. People who lived long, vibrant lives often shared a characteristic that had little to do with diet or genetics. They had a reason to wake up in the morning. They felt that their lives still mattered. They remained engaged in meaningful activity, caring for others, mentoring younger generations, working on projects that served their communities, or pursuing goals they believed were important. In other words, they lived with purpose. This observation led scientists to begin studying something that had rarely been measured before, the effect of meaning in life. The results were surprising. Several long-term studies found that individuals who reported a strong sense of purpose were significantly less likely to die during the study period compared to those who felt their lives lacked direction. Purpose appeared to influence more than emotional well-being. It appeared to influence health itself. What makes this discovery particularly fascinating is that the concept of purpose shaping human life is not new. Long before psychology or neuroscience existed, the Bible described human beings as creatures designed for meaningful responsibility. From the earliest pages of Genesis, people are portrayed not as passive observers of life, but as stewards of creation, individuals entrusted with responsibility and direction. Throughout the biblical narrative, many individuals who lived with strong calling demonstrated extraordinary resilience. Moses led a nation into old age. Caleb asked for battle at 85. Paul endured suffering and hardship because he believed his life carried a mission. This book explores the possibility that purpose may be one of the most overlooked factors influencing human vitality. We will look at the question from two perspectives. First, we will examine what modern research has discovered about the relationship between purpose, health, and longevity. Second, we will explore how the Bible describes human life as part of a larger design, a design that places purpose at the center of our existence. Ultimately, this book is not only about research or theology, it is about something deeply personal. It invites each reader to consider a simple question: what purpose is guiding my life? A life without direction can feel empty even when time is plentiful, but a life lived with purpose often carries a strength that reaches far beyond the calendar. In the chapters that follow, we will explore how purpose influences the mind, the body, and the spirit. We will examine scientific studies, biblical stories, and real-life examples that reveal the remarkable role meaning plays in human life. The goal is not to promise a specific number of years. Life remains unpredictable, but both science and scripture point toward a powerful insight. When people live with purpose, something inside them comes alive, and that sense of direction may be one of the greatest sources of strength a human being can possess. 3. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The Longevity Puzzle. Human beings have always been fascinated by the idea of living longer. From ancient herbal remedies to modern biotechnology, every generation has searched for the secret of a longer life. Today, the search has become almost an industry of its own. Bookstores are filled with guides promising longevity through new diets, specialized exercise routines, or carefully designed lifestyle habits. We hear the same advice repeated again and again: eat healthy food, stay physically active, avoid stress, get enough sleep. All of this advice is valuable. Medical research clearly shows that these factors influence health and longevity. People who take care of their bodies often enjoy better quality of life and, in many cases, live longer. But if you observe life carefully, something unusual appears. The equation does not always work the way we expect. Many of us know someone who seemed to do everything right. They exercised regularly, followed nutritional guidelines, avoided harmful habits, and still passed away earlier than anyone anticipated. At the same time, we may know someone who never seemed particularly concerned about the latest health advice and yet lived well into their 90s. These examples do not prove that lifestyle choices are unimportant. They clearly matter, but they suggest that something else may also influence how long a person lives, something that is harder to measure, something less visible than blood pressure, cholesterol levels, or medical test results. Over time, researchers began noticing a pattern that might help explain part of the mystery. Many people who lived long and resilient lives had something in common. They had a reason to live. At first, this observation might sound simple, even obvious, but when scientists began examining it more carefully, the implications became profound. Researchers studying aging populations noticed that individuals who remained mentally and socially engaged often experienced better health outcomes than those who became disconnected from meaningful activity. These individuals were not merely passing time, they were contributing. Some were mentoring younger generations, others were serving their communities. Many continued working on projects they believed were important. Their lives still had direction. Even when they slowed physically, they remained mentally active and emotionally invested in the world around them. In contrast, individuals who lost their sense of purpose sometimes experienced rapid decline. Without responsibilities, goals, or meaningful relationships, the mind often became less engaged. Over time, this disengagement could influence emotional well-being, physical activity, and even overall health. Purpose does something powerful within the human experience. It organizes life. When a person believes their actions contribute to something meaningful, daily effort gains direction. Challenges become part of a larger story rather than random obstacles. Purpose provides motivation during difficult moments. It encourages people to persevere when tasks become demanding or uncertain. It also keeps the mind engaged. A person working toward meaningful goals continues learning, thinking, planning, and solving problems. This mental activity stimulates the brain and strengthens cognitive function over time. Without purpose, the opposite often occurs. Life becomes repetitive. Days pass without meaningful engagement. Over time, the mind may lose the stimulation that once kept it active. The body often follows the mind's lead. Motivation fades, physical activity decreases, social relationships weaken. One of the most fascinating discoveries about longevity came from researchers studying communities where people frequently live well into their 90s and even past 100. These regions, sometimes referred to as blue zones, include places such as Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, and parts of Costa Rica. At first, researchers assumed diet and physical activity explained the unusual longevity found in these communities. While those factors certainly played a role, they did not fully explain the pattern. Another characteristic appeared repeatedly. People in these communities maintained a strong sense of purpose throughout their lives. In Okinawa, for example, there is a word that captures this idea: ikigai. Ikigai can be translated as a reason for being. It refers to the belief that one's life still carries value and contribution. The importance of purpose becomes even clearer when we observe what happens when it disappears. Many doctors and psychologists have noticed a phenomenon sometimes referred to as the retirement effect. After decades of working toward meaningful goals, some individuals struggle when retirement suddenly removes the structure that once guided their lives. At first, the change may feel liberating, but over time some individuals begin to feel disconnected. Their days lose direction, motivation declines, social interaction decreases. In certain cases, this loss of purpose can contribute to emotional and physical decline. It is not retirement itself that causes the problem. It is the sudden absence of meaningful engagement. Many people avoid this pattern by discovering new ways to contribute, volunteering, mentoring, teaching, or developing creative pursuits. The more researchers examined these patterns, the more a simple question began to emerge. What if purpose plays a larger role in human health than we once imagined? What if meaning is not merely a philosophical concept, but something that influences the mind and body in measurable ways? Because long before researchers began studying purpose, the Bible had already been describing human life in a remarkably similar way. From the earliest pages of Scripture, human beings are portrayed as creatures designed for meaningful responsibility. Life was never intended to be passive. It was meant to be lived with purpose. 4. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The Science of Purpose. For most of modern history, medicine focused almost entirely on the physical body. Doctors studied organs, infections, injuries, and diseases. Researchers searched for better medications, new surgical techniques, and improved treatments for illness. All of these developments saved countless lives. But something important was often overlooked. Human beings are not simply biological machines. We are also psychological and relational creatures. Our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs influence how we experience life. And as modern science has increasingly discovered, they also influence how our bodies function. Over the last several decades, scientists have begun paying closer attention to one particular aspect of human psychology: purpose. What they have discovered has surprised many researchers. A sense of meaning in life appears to influence health in ways that were once considered impossible to measure. In recent years, large research studies have followed thousands of participants over long periods of time, tracking both their psychological well-being and their physical health. One important area of research asked participants simple questions about meaning in life. Do you feel that your life has purpose? Do you feel that your daily activities are meaningful? Do you believe that what you do matters to others? Participants' answers were then compared with long-term health outcomes. The results were striking. Individuals who reported a strong sense of purpose were significantly less likely to die during the study period compared to those who felt their lives lacked direction. Even when researchers adjusted for factors like age, income, education, and existing health conditions, the pattern remained. Purpose seemed to have a measurable relationship with longevity. Researchers also noticed other benefits. People who felt their lives had meaning often experienced lower levels of stress, better emotional resilience, stronger social connections, and healthier daily habits. In other words, purpose appeared to influence not only lifespan, but also quality of life. Long before modern scientists began studying purpose through large data sets, one man had already recognized its extraordinary power. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived several Nazi concentration camps during World War II. Frankl began observing how different prisoners responded to these conditions. Some individuals lost hope and deteriorated quickly. Others somehow managed to endure. What distinguished the survivors was often not physical strength. It was meaning. Those who believed their lives still had purpose, even in the midst of suffering, often found the strength to continue. Frankl later summarized his observations in a famous statement: "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." One reason purpose may influence health lies in how the brain responds to meaningful goals. When a person works towards something they believe matters, several neurological systems become active. One of the most important chemicals involved in this process is dopamine. Dopamine plays a crucial role in motivation and attention. When the brain anticipates progress toward a meaningful goal, dopamine levels increase. This chemical response encourages persistence and focus. It helps individuals continue working even when tasks become difficult or uncertain. Another important discovery involves how purpose affects the body's response to stress. Stress is not always harmful. In small amounts, it can actually help the body respond to challenges. The problem arises when stress becomes chronic and meaningless. But researchers have found something fascinating. People who experience stress while pursuing meaningful goals often respond differently. When effort is connected to meaningful purpose, the brain often interprets stress as challenge rather than threat. This difference changes how the body responds. Stress associated with meaningful effort tends to be shorter and more manageable. The body recovers more quickly. Purpose is also closely connected to social relationships. Many forms of purpose involve contributing to the lives of others. Parents care for children, teachers guide students, mentors support younger generations, volunteers serve their communities. Studies have shown that strong social relationships are one of the most consistent predictors of long-term well-being. People who feel connected and needed by others tend to experience better emotional health and lower mortality risk. Purpose strengthens those connections. As research continues to explore the role of purpose in human health, a fascinating realization has begun to emerge. Modern science may be rediscovering something that ancient wisdom already understood. For thousands of years, religious traditions have described human life as part of a larger design. The Bible, in particular, consistently presents human beings as creatures created with responsibility and calling. If human beings were truly designed with purpose, then the discoveries of modern science begin to make sense. A life aligned with purpose would naturally produce resilience. It would keep the mind engaged, the body active, and the spirit motivated. 5. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Purpose in the Design of Creation. If modern science is beginning to discover the power of purpose, the Bible approaches the subject from a very different direction. Scripture does not begin by asking whether purpose is beneficial. Instead, it assumes something far more fundamental. Human beings were created with purpose from the very beginning. This idea appears in the very first pages of the Bible. In the book of Genesis, humanity is not described as an accident of nature or a random development of the universe. Human life is presented as intentional and meaningful. According to the biblical narrative, God creates the world with order and structure. Each part of creation serves a role within the whole. Then something remarkable happens. Human beings are introduced not merely as another part of creation, but as creatures entrusted with responsibility. Genesis 1:26 through 28 describes humanity being given stewardship over the earth. The language used suggests not domination for selfish gain, but responsible care for the world that God created. This passage reveals something profound. Human beings were never meant to exist passively within creation. They were meant to participate in it. Genesis 2 gives an even more detailed picture. The text says that God placed the first human being in the garden to work it and take care of it. This statement is easy to overlook, but it carries deep meaning. Work existed before sin. Purpose existed before hardship. Long before human history was marked by conflict or suffering, people were already given meaningful responsibility. The original design of human life included contribution. This challenges a common misconception. Many people assume that the ideal life would involve complete freedom from responsibility or effort. But the biblical narrative suggests something different. Human beings were designed to engage with life, not withdraw from it. As the story of the Bible unfolds, we see this pattern repeated again and again. Individuals are called into meaningful roles that shape not only their own lives, but also the lives of others. Abraham is called to leave his homeland and become the father of a nation. Joseph rises from slavery to leadership, preserving countless lives during famine. Moses leads an entire people out of oppression. David shepherds a nation as king. Esther risks her life to protect her people. Each of these stories reflects the same theme. Human lives become powerful when they are connected to purpose. These individuals faced extraordinary challenges, yet their sense of calling gave them strength to persevere through uncertainty and hardship. One of the most striking examples of this connection appears in the story of the Apostle Paul. Paul's life after his conversion was far from comfortable. His ministry involved constant travel, persecution, imprisonment, and physical hardship. From a purely practical perspective, it would have been easy for Paul to abandon his mission. But he continued. Why? Because he believed his life had a calling. The biblical portrayal of purposeful living aligns closely with what modern psychology has begun to discover. Human beings seem to thrive when their lives contribute to something larger than themselves. When people feel that their actions matter, motivation increases. Energy becomes directed toward meaningful goals. Difficulties become challenges to overcome rather than obstacles to avoid. There is an important difference between simply existing and living with calling. Existence focuses primarily on survival. Calling introduces a deeper dimension. Life becomes part of a larger story. Efforts are connected to goals that extend beyond personal comfort or immediate reward. The biblical perspective also presents purpose as a gift rather than a burden. God does not assign responsibility in order to exhaust or overwhelm human beings. Instead, purpose allows individuals to participate in something meaningful. At first glance, The Bible and modern science approach the subject of purpose from very different perspectives. Science studies observable patterns in human behavior and health. Scripture speaks about divine design and calling. Yet when we examine their conclusions, an interesting convergence appears. Both perspectives point toward the same fundamental idea. Human life was not meant to drift without direction. We were created to live with purpose. 6. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. Purpose adds years. If the Bible consistently presents human life as purposeful, another theme quietly appears throughout its pages. Several passages suggest that living according to wisdom, meaning, and responsibility is connected to longer life. One of the clearest examples appears in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 3:1-2 says, "My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity." The passage is simple, but its implication is profound. The writer suggests that a life guided by wisdom and moral direction may lead not only to peace, but also to longer years. This idea appears repeatedly throughout Proverbs. Another verse states, "For through wisdom your days will be many, and years will be added to your life." Proverbs 9:11. At first glance, these statements might sound like poetic encouragement rather than literal observations. Proverbs is a book of wisdom literature, after all, and its purpose is to guide people toward wise living. But when we look closer, the connection between wisdom, purpose, and longevity begins to make sense. A life guided by wisdom often leads to choices that protect life rather than destroy it. Wisdom encourages patience instead of reckless behavior. It promotes discipline rather than impulsiveness. It encourages relationships built on trust rather than conflict. Over time, these choices shape the course of a life. Beyond these general teachings, the Bible also provides powerful examples of individuals whose sense of purpose seemed to sustain them far beyond what might normally be expected. One striking example is Caleb. Caleb first appears in the book of Numbers as one of the 12 spies sent to explore the land of Canaan. When most of the spies returned with fear and doubt, Caleb and Joshua were the only ones who believed that the Israelites could succeed in entering the land God had promised them. Decades later, after the Israelites finally entered the promised land, Caleb made a remarkable statement. In Joshua 14:10-11, he said, "Now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses. So here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out." Then Caleb made an even more astonishing request. He asked for the most difficult region of land to conquer. Instead of seeking rest in old age, Caleb asked for another challenge. "Give me this mountain," he said. His words reveal something important. Caleb's strength was not simply physical. It was fueled by purpose. Even in advanced age, he believed his life still had a mission. Another powerful example appears in the life of Moses. The book of Deuteronomy records that Moses died at the age of 120. What is remarkable is how his physical condition is described at the time of his death. Deuteronomy 34:7 states, "Moses was 120 years old when he died, yet his eyes were not weak, nor his strength gone." For most of his life, Moses carried enormous responsibility. He led a nation through the wilderness. He mediated disputes, guided the people, and communicated God's instructions. His role demanded constant leadership and decision-making. Yet Moses continued in that responsibility for decades. His life was not defined by ease or comfort. It was defined by calling. That calling sustained him. These examples illustrate an important principle. Purpose often strengthens perseverance. When people believe their lives serve a meaningful mission, they tend to endure hardship with greater determination. Challenges that might discourage others become obstacles to overcome, rather than reasons to quit. Purpose gives context to struggle. A person climbing a mountain may experience fatigue and discomfort, but the effort feels meaningful because the destination matters. In the same way, individuals who believe their lives have direction often continue moving forward, even when circumstances become difficult. Without purpose, difficulties can feel overwhelming. With purpose, they often become part of a larger journey. We see this pattern repeatedly throughout Scripture. Abraham continued his journey of faith into old age. Anna, the prophetess in the New Testament, continued serving in the temple late in life. The Apostle Paul carried his mission across the Roman world despite constant danger. These individuals were not simply waiting for life to end. They were still engaged in meaningful work. Their lives retained direction. Purpose does not guarantee that a person will live a specific number of years. Life remains unpredictable, but the Bible repeatedly suggests that meaningful living strengthens endurance. Purpose keeps the spirit active. It prevents life from fading into passive existence. Modern research increasingly supports this ancient observation. Scientists now recognize that individuals who maintain meaningful goals often remain mentally and physically active longer. Purpose encourages engagement with life. It motivates people to keep learning, building relationships, and contributing to their communities. These activities strengthen both mental and physical health. What ancient wisdom described in spiritual language, modern science is beginning to describe through psychological and biological research. Both perspectives point toward the same insight. A life guided by purpose tends to remain vibrant. 1. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The Biology of Purpose. When people speak about purpose, they often think of it as something emotional or philosophical. Purpose is usually described as a feeling, a sense that life has direction or meaning. It is often associated with motivation, fulfillment, or personal satisfaction. But recent research suggests that purpose may influence something much deeper. It may affect the body itself. The connection between the mind and the body has long been recognized in medicine, but scientists are now beginning to understand just how powerful that relationship can be. Our thoughts, beliefs, and motivations influence the chemical signals that move throughout the body every day. Purpose appears to be one of the forces that shape those signals. When a person wakes up with something meaningful to accomplish, the brain responds differently than when the day feels empty or directionless. The brain is constantly scanning for goals. When it identifies something important, it activates systems that increase focus, motivation, and persistence. One of the most important chemicals involved in this process is dopamine. Dopamine is often described as a reward chemical, but its role is more complex than that. It helps the brain anticipate progress toward a goal. When we believe that our actions are moving us toward something meaningful, dopamine levels rise. This chemical response encourages engagement. It keeps the brain alert and focused. People pursuing meaningful goals often experience sustained mental activity. They think, plan, solve problems, and adapt to challenges. All of this activity keeps neural pathways active. In simple terms, purpose keeps the brain working. Just as muscles become stronger with use, the brain remains healthier when it is engaged. Without purpose, the opposite can happen. When days lack direction, the brain receives fewer signals encouraging engagement. Motivation drops, attention wanders, and mental stimulation decreases. Over long periods of time, this lack of engagement can contribute to cognitive decline. Purpose acts like a form of mental exercise. Purpose also affects how the body responds to stress. Stress is often portrayed as entirely harmful, but this is not always true. In many situations, stress actually helps the body respond to challenges. When we face a difficult situation, the body releases hormones such as adrenaline and cortisol. These chemicals prepare us to act quickly and focus our attention. The problem arises when stress becomes chronic and meaningless. When people experience constant pressure without direction or hope, the body remains in a prolonged state of tension. High levels of cortisol over long periods can damage the immune system, disrupt sleep, and increase the risk of various illnesses. But researchers have discovered something fascinating. The body often responds differently when stress is connected to meaningful effort. When people believe their struggle serves a meaningful purpose, the brain interprets the challenge differently. Instead of viewing stress purely as danger, the brain often interprets it as effort towards something valuable. This shift changes the body's response. Stress still exists, but the recovery process becomes faster. The body returns to balance more easily. Purpose does not eliminate difficulty, but it transforms how we experience it. Purpose also influences daily behavior in ways that indirectly affect health. Individuals with clear goals tend to remain active longer. A person caring for grandchildren may remain physically engaged in ways that someone living without responsibility might not. A teacher mentoring students continues preparing lessons, reading, and interacting with others. These activities keep both the mind and body moving. In contrast, when individuals lose a sense of direction, activity levels often decline. Days become quieter and more sedentary. Over time, this reduction in activity can affect cardiovascular health, muscle strength, and overall vitality. Purpose encourages movement. It keeps people involved in the rhythms of life. Researchers studying the immune system have also discovered links between emotional well-being and physical health. Individuals who experience chronic loneliness, despair, or lack of meaning often show increased levels of inflammation in the body. Inflammation plays a role in many serious diseases, including heart disease and certain forms of cancer. While the relationship between purpose and immune function is still being studied, early findings suggest that individuals with strong meaning in life may experience healthier immune responses. Purpose appears to support emotional stability, and emotional stability supports physical health. The connection is complex, but the pattern is becoming increasingly clear. The mind and body are deeply connected. When we step back and consider these discoveries together, an interesting picture emerges. Purpose encourages mental engagement. It strengthens resilience during stress. It promotes physical activity and social interaction. All of these factors contribute to long-term well-being. Purpose, therefore, acts as a kind of protective force within human life. It does not make people immune to illness or difficulty, but it helps individuals remain engaged with life in ways that support both mental and physical health. What makes these discoveries especially fascinating is how closely they echo insights that have existed for centuries. The Bible repeatedly describes human life as meaningful participation in God's creation. People are called to care for others, build communities, and live responsibly. These responsibilities keep individuals engaged with life. They encourage action rather than passivity. They strengthen relationships and encourage perseverance. Modern science, approaching the subject from a different direction, is beginning to observe many of the same patterns. Purpose strengthens resilience. It keeps the mind active. It encourages behaviors that support long-term health. 2. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Discovering your purpose. At some point in life, almost everyone asks the same question: why am I here? It may not always be expressed in those exact words, but the question often appears in quieter forms. What should I be doing with my life? What difference does my life make? Is there something I was meant to contribute? For some people, the answer seems obvious. They discover a calling early in life and pursue it with clarity. For many others, however, purpose unfolds more slowly. The truth is that purpose is rarely revealed all at once. More often, it develops over time. One of the common misconceptions about purpose is that it arrives suddenly, like a lightning strike. Many people imagine that one day they will receive perfect clarity about their life's direction. Until that moment arrives, they feel uncertain about their role in the world. But when we examine the lives of people who eventually discovered meaningful callings, we often see something different. Purpose tends to appear while people are already moving forward. Consider the life of David in the Old Testament. David did not begin his life knowing he would become king of Israel. His early years were spent doing something far simpler. He cared for sheep. The task may have seemed ordinary, but it developed qualities that later shaped his leadership, courage, responsibility, and patience. While tending the flock, David learned to defend his animals from predators. Those early experiences prepared him for the moment when he faced Goliath. His future role grew out of faithful engagement with the responsibilities already placed before him. Purpose often works this way. It emerges through action. Another biblical example appears in the story of Joseph. Joseph's early life was marked by difficulty. Betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery, he found himself in circumstances that seemed far removed from any meaningful destiny. Yet Joseph remained faithful in the responsibilities given to him. In Potiphar's house, he managed household affairs with integrity. Later, while imprisoned, he earned the trust of the prison authorities and was placed in charge of other prisoners. These responsibilities may not have seemed impressive at the time, but they developed the character and leadership skills that later prepared him for a far greater role in Egypt. Joseph's story illustrates an important principle. Purpose often grows out of faithfulness in small responsibilities. The steps may appear ordinary at first, but they gradually shape a path toward greater influence. Many people searching for purpose overlook the clues already present in their lives. Purpose frequently emerges where several elements intersect. One clue is ability. Each person carries certain strengths and talents. Some individuals communicate ideas clearly. Others solve technical problems with ease. Some possess natural compassion and connect deeply with people. Abilities often point toward areas where a person can contribute effectively. Another clue is interest. People tend to feel drawn toward activities that naturally engage their curiosity. Interests can reveal where motivation and energy flow most easily. A third clue involves the needs around us. Purpose is rarely self-centered. It usually appears where personal strengths meet real needs in the lives of others. When these elements come together, ability, interest, and need, purpose often begins to take shape. One of the clearest paths to purpose is responsibility. Responsibilities push individuals beyond passive living. They create opportunities to contribute, serve, and solve problems. A parent caring for a child quickly discovers that life is no longer centered only on personal comfort. The needs of another person become central. Teachers guiding students, doctors caring for patients, leaders organizing teams, each of these roles carries responsibility that gives structure and meaning to daily effort. Responsibility often reveals purpose because it connects personal effort to the well-being of others. While purpose often develops through action and responsibility, the Bible also emphasizes another dimension: listening. Throughout Scripture, we see individuals who sought guidance through prayer, reflection, and attention to God's direction. Moses encountered his calling through an unexpected moment at the burning bush. Samuel learned to recognize God's voice as a young boy in the temple. The Apostle Paul experienced a dramatic turning point that redirected the course of his life. These moments remind us that purpose is not only something we construct ourselves. Sometimes it is something we discover through listening and openness. Quiet reflection, prayer, and thoughtful attention to life's circumstances often reveal insights that busy schedules can easily hide. Another important truth about purpose is that it evolves. The calling that guides someone in youth may not be identical to the role they fulfill later in life. Early adulthood often focuses on building careers, families, and stability. Later years may bring opportunities for mentorship, guidance, and legacy. Purpose grows as life progresses. A teacher may begin by mastering classroom skills and later devote energy to mentoring younger educators. A parent may focus first on raising children and later discover purpose in supporting grandchildren or serving the community. Purpose is not a single moment. It is a journey that unfolds across different seasons of life. Discovering purpose does not require perfect clarity about the future. What it requires is intention, a willingness to engage with life rather than drift through it. When individuals use their abilities to serve meaningful needs, purpose begins to emerge naturally. Over time, those actions create direction. They shape identity. They strengthen motivation. Purpose becomes visible not only in grand achievements, but also in daily faithfulness. 3. Chapter 7. Chapter 7. When purpose disappears. If purpose strengthens human life, the loss of purpose can have the opposite effect. This reality often becomes visible during major transitions in life. A person who has spent decades working toward meaningful goals may suddenly find themselves without direction. Responsibilities that once structured daily life disappear almost overnight. The result is not always immediate, but over time something begins to change. Without meaningful engagement, life can start to feel empty. Days lose their structure. Motivation fades. Activities that once seemed important begin to feel unnecessary. Many people experience this shift after retirement. For years, their lives were organized around responsibilities, projects to complete, people to lead, problems to solve. Their work required attention and energy. It gave them a reason to wake up each morning. Then one day the routine stops. At first, the freedom may feel refreshing. There are no deadlines, no meetings, no demands. But after a while, something unexpected can happen. Without meaningful goals, some individuals begin to feel restless or disconnected. They miss the sense that their efforts matter. Doctors and psychologists have observed a pattern sometimes called the retirement effect. Not everyone experiences it, but in certain cases, individuals who suddenly lose meaningful responsibility show noticeable changes in both emotional and physical health. Their daily activity decreases. Social interaction becomes less frequent. The mental stimulation that once came from solving problems or interacting with colleagues disappears. Over time, this reduction in engagement can influence motivation, mood, and even physical well-being. It is important to understand that retirement itself is not harmful. Many people enjoy retirement precisely because they replace professional responsibilities with other meaningful activities, volunteering, mentoring, pursuing creative interests, or supporting family members. The difference lies in whether purpose remains present. When life continues to include meaningful contribution, individuals often remain vibrant and active. But when purpose disappears entirely, the human spirit can begin to fade. Psychologists who study human motivation often describe purpose as one of the central forces that sustain well-being. Without it, people can experience what might be called existential fatigue, a sense that daily life lacks direction or significance. This feeling can manifest in many ways. Some individuals become apathetic, others withdraw from social relationships, still others experience anxiety or depression. The absence of purpose can make even small tasks feel exhausting. When effort appears meaningless, motivation becomes difficult to sustain. This condition is not limited to retirement. It can also occur when people feel trapped in environments where their contributions seem unrecognized or unnecessary. A job that once felt meaningful may become mechanical. Responsibilities that once inspired pride may begin to feel like empty routines. Without purpose, work becomes mere activity. With purpose, work becomes meaningful engagement. Another consequence of losing purpose is social disconnection. Many forms of purpose involve relationships with others. Parents care for children. Teachers guide students. Leaders coordinate teams. Volunteers serve communities. These interactions create bonds that strengthen emotional health. When individuals withdraw from meaningful roles, those connections may weaken. Loneliness then becomes a serious concern. Modern research has shown that chronic loneliness can have significant effects on physical health. It has been associated with increased risks of heart disease, weakened immune function, and cognitive decline. Human beings were designed for connection. Purpose often provides the framework through which those connections develop. Without purpose, people may gradually drift into isolation. From a biblical perspective, the loss of purpose carries a deeper dimension. Scripture consistently portrays human life as part of a larger story. When individuals forget that their lives have meaning within God's design, they may begin to feel disconnected not only from others, but also from their spiritual foundation. The book of Ecclesiastes reflects on the emptiness that can arise when life appears to lack meaning. Its author describes the experience of pursuing achievements, wealth, and pleasure without deeper purpose. The conclusion is striking. Without meaning, even great accomplishments can feel empty. The good news is that purpose can be rediscovered. Life rarely follows a perfectly straight path. Circumstances change, roles shift, and seasons of uncertainty appear. Yet new opportunities for meaningful contribution often emerge in unexpected places. A retired professional may discover purpose in mentoring younger colleagues. A parent whose children have grown may begin investing energy in community service. Someone facing personal hardship may develop compassion that allows them to help others facing similar struggles. Ultimately, purpose requires a choice to participate in life rather than withdraw from it, a choice to invest energy in relationships, responsibilities, and contributions that extend beyond personal comfort. This choice does not eliminate difficulty, but it restores direction. When individuals reconnect with meaningful work, whether through service, creativity, mentorship, or faith, the human spirit often awakens again. Life regains structure, motivation returns, hope begins to grow. 4. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. Purpose through every season of life. One of the most beautiful aspects of purpose is that it does not belong to only one stage of life. Purpose is not limited to youth, career, or a particular season of productivity. It changes and adapts as life unfolds. The responsibilities and opportunities that give meaning to our lives in our 20s may not be the same ones that guide us in our 40s or 70s. Yet the need for purpose remains constant. Human beings do not stop needing meaning simply because time passes. In fact, many people discover deeper purpose as they grow older. In the early years of life, purpose often takes the form of preparation. Young people are learning how the world works. They are developing skills, forming values, and discovering the abilities that will shape their future contributions. This season is often marked by exploration. Students experiment with different interests and talents. They test ideas, pursue education, and begin imagining how their lives might unfold. Although these years can feel uncertain, they are deeply important. They lay the foundation for future purpose. The knowledge, discipline, and character developed during this time become the tools that allow individuals to serve others later in life. Even when the path ahead seems unclear, preparation itself carries meaning. As adulthood begins, purpose often becomes more concrete. Responsibilities increase, careers develop, families grow, communities form. Individuals begin investing their time and energy into projects that extend beyond themselves. This stage of life is frequently marked by building. People build homes, businesses, organizations, and relationships. They take on roles that influence the lives of others. Parents nurture children. Leaders guide teams. Professionals apply their skills to solve problems and create value. This stage requires tremendous effort. It often includes long hours, difficult decisions, and moments of exhaustion. But it also offers deep satisfaction. When individuals see the results of their efforts in the lives of others, purpose becomes tangible. The work is no longer only about personal success. It becomes part of a larger story. As people move into later stages of life, purpose often takes another form. Experience becomes one of the most valuable resources a person can offer. Older generations carry wisdom that younger generations urgently need. Years of success, failure, learning, and perseverance produce insight that cannot be taught in classrooms alone. This is why mentorship becomes so powerful. A conversation between someone who has lived through decades of experience and someone just beginning their journey can shape decisions for years to come. In many traditional societies, elders play a central role in guiding the community. Their presence offers stability, perspective, and encouragement. Purpose in later life often centers around guidance and legacy. The Bible presents aging not as decline alone, but as an opportunity for continued influence. Proverbs 16:31 says, "Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life." The verse reflects a deep respect for the wisdom that comes from years of faithful living. Another powerful example appears in the New Testament with the prophetess Anna. Luke 2 describes Anna as an elderly woman who spent her days in the temple, worshiping and speaking about the coming of the Messiah. Despite her advanced age, her life still carried purpose. She continued serving and encouraging others. Anna's story reminds us that purpose does not fade simply because time passes. As long as life continues, opportunities for meaningful contribution remain. Eventually, every person begins to think about legacy. What will remain after my life is over? This question does not require wealth or fame to answer. Legacy often appears through the lives we influence. A parent who raises children with integrity leaves a legacy that can extend through generations. A teacher who encourages a struggling student may shape a future leader. A mentor who shares wisdom may change the direction of someone's life. When we step back and observe life as a whole, a pattern emerges. Purpose is not a single moment of discovery. It is a continuous journey. In youth, we prepare. In adulthood, we build. In later years, we guide and influence. Each season carries its own opportunities. Each season contributes to the larger story of a life. The key is not to discover one perfect role that lasts forever. The key is to live each season with intention. When individuals engage fully with the responsibilities and opportunities placed before them, purpose naturally grows. A student who studies diligently prepares for future contribution. A professional who serves with integrity strengthens the lives of those around them. An elder who shares wisdom helps guide the next generation. Each stage becomes meaningful when it is lived with intention and care. 5. Chapter 9 and Final Reflection. Chapter 9. The Longevity Secret Hidden in Plain Sight. When we step back and look at the journey we have taken through this book, an interesting picture begins to appear. For generations, people have searched for the secret to a longer life. Entire industries have grown around the hope of slowing aging and extending human vitality. Diet plans, exercise programs, supplements, and medical breakthroughs all promise to help us live longer and healthier lives. Many of these efforts are valuable. Caring for the body is an important part of responsible living. But the deeper question remains: what truly sustains a life over time? Throughout these pages, we have explored a possibility that is both ancient and surprisingly modern. Purpose may be one of the most powerful forces shaping human life. Modern research continues to reveal connections between meaning and well-being. Individuals who believe their lives have purpose often demonstrate stronger emotional resilience. They are more likely to remain socially connected, mentally engaged, and physically active. Purpose encourages people to keep moving forward. It gives direction to effort and context to struggle. Scientific studies suggest that people who maintain this sense of meaning often experience measurable health benefits. They cope with stress more effectively. They maintain stronger relationships. They stay mentally engaged with life. These factors combine to support both well-being and longevity. Science is still uncovering the full biological mechanisms behind these patterns, but the direction of the evidence is becoming increasingly clear. Meaning matters. While science has only recently begun measuring the effects of purpose, the Bible has been describing meaningful living for thousands of years. From the opening chapters of Genesis, human beings are portrayed as participants in a purposeful design. Life is not presented as random existence. It is described as stewardship. Human beings are invited to care for creation, build communities, nurture relationships, and live according to wisdom. Throughout the biblical narrative, we see individuals whose sense of calling gave them strength to persevere through hardship. Abraham continued trusting God deep into old age. Caleb asked for new challenges even at 85. Paul carried his mission across the Roman world despite constant danger. Modern culture often measures success through visible achievements, wealth, status, influence, or recognition. But purpose offers a different perspective. Instead of asking, "How much did I accumulate?" it asks, "How much did my life contribute?" A life filled with purpose does not always look spectacular from the outside. It may appear in quiet acts of service, a parent raising children with patience and love, a teacher investing in the growth of students, a neighbor helping others through difficult times. These contributions may never receive public recognition, yet they shape lives in ways that extend far beyond the individual who initiated them. One of the most remarkable aspects of purpose is the energy it generates. When individuals believe their lives matter, they often experience renewed motivation. They continue learning. They continue building relationships. They continue contributing. Purpose keeps the mind active and the heart engaged. Ultimately, the search for purpose is deeply personal. No one else can fully determine what role another person should play in the world. Each life carries unique abilities, opportunities, and circumstances. But every person faces the same fundamental question: what will I do with the life I have been given? This question does not demand a single dramatic answer. Purpose often appears in the simple decision to live with intention, to use one's abilities to serve others, to pursue wisdom, to contribute wherever possible. Small acts of purpose accumulate over time. They shape character. They influence relationships. They create impact. When we combine the insights of science and the wisdom of Scripture, a powerful conclusion begins to emerge. Human beings appear to thrive when their lives are guided by meaningful purpose. Purpose engages the mind. It strengthens resilience during hardship. It encourages connection with others. It motivates continued growth and contribution. A life lived with purpose often becomes a life filled with vitality, not because purpose magically guarantees longevity, but because it keeps the human spirit alive. Purpose encourages people to remain participants in life rather than observers. It invites them to build, serve, guide, and contribute. And when people live this way, something remarkable often happens. Life does not merely pass, it becomes meaningful. Final reflection. Every life eventually reaches its final chapter. No amount of effort can prevent the passage of time, but the measure of a life is not only found in its length, it is found in how those years were lived. A life without direction may stretch across many decades and still feel empty. But a life guided by purpose leaves a legacy that continues long after the individual is gone. Purpose turns ordinary days into meaningful contributions. It connects personal effort with something greater. And in doing so, it transforms the way we experience time itself. The years we are given become more than a sequence of days. They become a story of meaning, a story of contribution, a story of purpose.